All right, welcome here to a discussion of Japanese geography. I think a major component of culture is place, right? You gotta know, understand kind of the geography, topography, areas of a certain country to kind of understand the culture they're in. And like all countries, different regions of Japan have different specialities, sort of similar, like their own uniqueness, if you will. So yeah, I want to kind of get this section. I want to sort of walk through a little bit about what Japan is, get familiar with the layout of these islands here. So this is Japan. This is a nice little map that kind of lays it all out, just sort of overviewing, overarching um, population. 125 million people live on these islands, so it's um, pretty highly populated. Mainly, most of them live in cities, and these cities can be very, very huge. And then, the countryside, a lot of farming. Most all the land that can be that is arable, that can be farmed, is farmed. Though, as we will see later on, one of the issues of Japan is there's not a lot of farmland available. There's really sort of this, sort of flat land, and then very quickly into mountains. So, and we'll kind of look at that as we go. Life expectancy is 84 years, second in the world. So the amount of people that live here live for quite a long time. And yeah, and you can see that. I think a lot of that is related back to last week when we talked about food. I mean, there's a lot of Japanese eat relatively, regionally, seasonally. Most of their meals are contain, they're filling, but they contain a lot of small different items rather than like one big heaping thing of steak and potatoes or something like that. So, and they exercise a lot. You walk around in Japan quite a bit, more so, not as much driving culture. So that's the peoples there, which again we'll learn about more over the course of the semester. And then just sort of to get you familiar with, if you don't know the main islands, here's Hokkaido. It's sort of up north. The capital is Sapporo. We'll talk about this a little bit in a little more detail, but northernmost island, kind of its own little world up here. I've heard it sometimes sort of been described a little bit as the Big Island, sort of a little bit off to its own, a little more rural. Yeah, just a little more relaxed up there. And then the main island here is Honshu. That's the big one. Here where a lot of the major cities are, sort of the middle island, if you will. Kind of the northern, this Tokyo is usually referred to as sort of the eastern, and then western, with Kyoto. So this is a nice big, the main island is Honshu, and then Shikoku is this little island off here. There's bridges across here, but this is its own island here. And then this creates a sort of inland sea as well in Japan. And then Kyushu is the southernmost island down here, a little more tropical. Fukuoka, Nagasaki. And then Okinawa is this last little bit that sticks down here. And sometimes Kyushu and Okinawa are connected, but they are a little bit different, as we'll talk about further on. That Okinawa has its own sort of language, has its own sort of culture. Hasn't always been traditionally part of Japan, but has been put in there. So this is get you familiar with where Japan is. So here's a couple rivers up here. Here's the largest river as well. Here's the largest lake, Lake Biwa, right outside of Kyoto. A lot of bays. So Tokyo's on a bay. This bay here is Nagoya. Osaka is on this sort of inland sea here. And then you have the Pacific Ocean on this side, the Sea of Japan. There are a lot of cold, in the wintertime, the cold air blows off of China, Korea. So this is like the more snowy, cold side versus a little more Pacific, temperate side there. So I think that's kind of some major overviews of the geography of Japan. Here's another nice, I like this little picture here. Kind of see Japan. This is Google Earth, so you can see all these islands again: Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku, Fukuoka, Kyushu, Kyushu, Okinawa down here. So you can see, and these show the bays a little bit more. This is Tokyo up here. This is Nagoya. So you can kind of see that here, you have these sort of plains. Some of these plains where it can be sort of flatter with rivers, but here you see these large mountains too. as well. I think that this little dot here is Mount Fuji right there. I like this map. This is kind of a scale of Japan to kind of show you how kind of long it is. You know, if you were to go from Chicago to Dallas, so that's a pretty good, drive from sort of north to south, even now over here to Texas. So in Japan, in the scale, it extends pretty much most of sort of the Midwest, if you will, of America. Can just give you driving. You can drive. I think the Tokyo Osaka drive is like 6-7 hours. If you take the Shinkansen, the fast train, you can go there in 2 hours, which is a little bit easier than flying. Flying's a little quicker, but you got to go through the airport and all that stuff. But kind of give you a little scale of Japan there. And here, again, I think this map does a good job of showing all the sort of mountains of Japan and these little flat parts. I mean, this is where most of the cities are. Most of the populated areas are in these flat areas, and then it gets very mountainous very quickly, which will have a lot of repercussions on sort of Japanese culture and how it was developed, which we'll get into a little bit later. This is another one, too, I think is important that, I mean, all of this is created because Japan is on these major fault lines, sort of at the edge of this, of the Eurasian plate and where the Pacific plate meet. It's uplifted. This is where all these mountains come from, volcanic, and sort of this uplift of these plates, which caused major earthquakes. Tohoku earthquake was up here, but there's a lot of earthquakes, quite a bit. If you notice these, the Philippine plate and the Pacific plate and the Eurasian plate all meet in this little corner here. This is Mount Fuji. So Mount Fuji is the center of where all these plates come together. This is also a reason why there's a lot of hot springs all throughout Japan, because there's a lot of volcanic activity. This peninsula here called Izu, there's a lot of very good hot springs down here because it's kind of on the triangulation of the Philippine plate and the Pacific plate and the Eurasian plate. So yeah, and you can kind of see the different if you like geology, right? This is a good, you can get into this a little bit more. You can see all the mountains, but I think these two kind of lay out Japan topography a little bit more clearly. And then just a little more geography stuff. There's 8 major regions of these islands. Hokkaido is its own region. Tohoku is usually sort of northern Honshu. This is Sendai, Fukushima, Niigata, areas like this. A little more mountainous and rural up here in this area. And this is Kanto, which I've highlighted. Kanto is, obviously major. This is right around Tokyo here. Kanto and Kansai are the two, probably the major regions. Kanto being the Tokyo area, Kansai being the Kyoto area. So culturally, this was like the old capital. This is sort of the traditional Japan versus Kanto. And there's kind of like a little bit of rivalry. Obviously, in Osaka's down here, so the two major cities. It's like sports-wise, I think it's the Osaka Tigers versus the Tokyo Giants in baseball. Sumo, sort of the regional rivalries as well. There's also like linguistic and cultural things. Like Kanto is kind of like, they kind of are more, they're Tokyo a little more, seen as a little more reserved and quiet, where Kansai is a little bit louder, a little more sort of business oriented. Some people from Kanto compare Kansai people as sort of New York, kind of more in your face, more excitable versus or more straightforward than Kanto. These are two major areas, and then Chubu is sort of the central Japan. Nagoya is the big kind of city here. A lot of mountains. This is where the Japanese Alps are over here, and then Kansai, I just talked about, Kyoto, Osaka, Shikoku, Chukoku, Kyushu, sort of southern area as well. There's 47 prefectures here. 43 proper prefectures, and then Kyoto and Osaka are their own prefectures. Hokkaido is its own prefecture, and Tokyo is its own prefecture as well. Major cities, again, Sapporo, Sendai, this is Fukushima over here, Aomori, sort of up north. Niigata's on the mouth of this river here, the Shinano, longest river in Japan. Mount Fuji, Tokyo, obviously people know. Kyoto, Kobe, Nagoya is sort of the central one. Kobe, Osaka, Kobe, and Kyoto are kind of this sort of another megapolis. Yokohama, Tokyo is all sort of one big city. And then Hiroshima here, Fukuoka, Nagasaki, Kagoshima. So kind of just get familiar with these different cities, major areas, urban areas of Japan. Um, yeah, and then geography features, sort of talked about some of these as well. Back here, Mount Fuji. Here's that river that kind of goes up north. The Japanese Alps is right in the center here. Sakurajima is a volcanic mountain right down here in Kyushu. The rivers, again, we talked about because of the geography. They're very short and steep. There's not a lot of long rivers, not like the Mississippi or the Nile. The longest one is only 228 miles long that kind of goes and snakes through the east side of Japan, the eastern coast of Japan. A couple major lakes, Lake Biwa right in the middle here, Lake Suwa, I believe this is it up here, are the major lakes. And then a lot of peninsulas, as you can see, and islands. I think the most recent update is 14,125 identified islands associated with Japan. So that's hopefully that kind of gives you a layout of where of what Japan is and what it looks like geographically, and kind of can put these cities and regions together in your mind.